No matter who you are or where you go, heading outside even for a few minutes is always worth it. I'm your host, Amy Bouchatz, and here at Humans Outside, we're using the Humans Outside 365 Challenge to build a life around spending time in nature while hearing from fascinating outdoor-minded guests. As a journalist for 19 years, I've let curiosity be my guide. After my husband's injuries from military service, we started looking for a better way to live. That's why we moved sight unseen to Alaska to see if an outdoor-focused life was the answer. Since September 2017, I've personally spent at least 20 consecutive minutes outside every single day, no matter what, to explore how nature can change my life. Ready to hear from experts and outdoor lovers who make heading into nature just a part of who they are while we work to do the same? Let's go! Enjoying summer weather yet? Hopefully you haven't hit a point where it's too hot outside that instead of having fun when it's nice, you're wishing for a place to stay cool. But if you have, this Best of Humans Outside episode is perfect for you. Anyone who has ever spent time outside with kids has heard them complain about temperature, and probably in particular about being hot. So how do you create great outdoor experiences while keeping kids comfortable? How do you know what to wear or what to do to make that happen? India Tate, a self-described adventure mom to 2 kids, has some practical advice on how she gets her children outside for adventures all summer long in the hot and sticky southern U.S. In this Best of Humans Outside episode, she shares her best tips and tricks for making it happen. Here's that episode with India. India, welcome to Humans Outside.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm really excited to connect here with you today and to share your experience because you've lived it. You were telling me that your 2 kids who are both under 4 and that they're a year and a half apart. So you are in the throes of it, my friend.
Yes, it's definitely an adventure for sure.
So why don't you kick us off by telling us how you personally became someone who likes to spend time outside?
So I've always spent time outside, just not in the same nature as I do currently, which is funny. Growing up, like we went camping with I have a younger sister, so like we would go camping growing up with our friends, our parents as well. So like we would all get together and have like this big group camp session every summer, which is really fun. But then as I got a little bit older, most of my time spent outside was doing sports. So not really like having fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I ran track and field, and so I was always into like the running and the walking and stuff like that, which is why hiking now resonates with me so well.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first started having kids, I was just like, I don't really want to be cooped up in the house all the time. So like, what can I do to get them moving, to get all that energy out? So we found like a local forest school with other parents and their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and we went on like little trails and explored different parks, and we did that for a while. And then we moved to California a couple of years ago. And it's funny that you mentioned California in the hot summers. So we moved to California a few years ago, and it was right before the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, well, we just moved to this new state. What is there really to do when we can't go anywhere? So we found out that, of course, the beaches were still open and the regional parks were still open. So we explored a lot of our time outdoors during the week when barely anybody was outside.
Right.
Um, and that's really how we got into, well, how I got into exploring more with them.
Yeah.
Just, staying close to home
Yeah.
and going on little short trails and then coming back and doing more. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, during the pandemic, especially in really populated areas, the outdoor spaces, those parks in particular, right? Like obvious places to go, organized spaces, if you will, were really so overrun with people. We even saw that here in Alaska, which is crazy because it's Alaska. So you'd think there'd be like space for everybody. But it was just bumper to bumper parking in some areas, just super crazy. I mean, great to see everybody outside, but it felt, I mean, in a time where we all felt a little bit crowded out anyway, it felt like being crowded out. So it makes perfect sense that you're like, how about on a weekday?
Yes, yes. Because I like, I'm somebody who already doesn't like crowds. So, like, even going to an airport is like a little bit I get a little bit of anxiety. So I'm just like, it's a lot of people. So yeah, during the weekday is always the best time for us because not that I wasn't working like part time or anything, but like I had more flexibility in my schedule to be like, let's get outside for a few hours.
Right. Really picking your time purposefully. So you
Hmm.
said that when you had kids, you found a forest school. Was there ever a time before you guys got into that being outside or spending time outside with your kids wasn't just a natural progression for you? Was there maybe an on-ramp or sometime where the light bulb kind of flipped on where you're like, wait a second?
So for me, I think it was like after we moved to California, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because I was just like, it's not just time to get outside and take up time, but like, we really enjoyed doing these things. I got more into homeschooling and I was just like, we can learn a lot by like living our day-to-day life and doing things outdoors and spending more time together as a family, no matter the season.
Right. Right. So much of American kid culture, and this is even more true for people with older kids. I watch even my friends with kids who are older than mine. So my children are age 10 and 13 now, but even going into high school, so much of spending time outside is exactly what you said your experience was earlier, being in track and field and doing sports and being outside by virtue of the activities that you're doing. Do you see that becoming part of what you maybe shift into doing with your kids, or are you steering away from that in favor of spending more time as a family adventuring? Because honestly, you can't do everything. So it's just so hard.
Yeah, no, so I definitely want to continue to doing what we're doing, getting outside, going on adventures, just exploring the outdoors like we already do. But I do feel like, wiggle room for outdoor activities
Hmm.
if they choose to. Because they're at the age now, well, at least the oldest one is where he's getting introduced to all these different little sports. And one day he's like, oh, I really like soccer. And tomorrow he's like, oh, well, can we try mini golf? And I'm just like, do you really know what you want to do? Or are you just like exploring that option?
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely going to have to be a balance
Yeah.
of what they end up doing for sure.
It's such a hard balance to make. And I find that, well, I hesitate to make sweeping declarations lest I have to eat my words later. So, like, I try not to say we will never do that, anything, because
Hmm.
that's a real good way to have to look back and be like, and in fact, we did. So,
Right, right,
if
exactly.
we could find a mini golf league, that'd be amazing. Is that a thing?
I have no idea.
I think your son should really lean into that. It's just, I mean, that's my
I
idea.
know. I know. He's played mini golf maybe like twice, and I don't even know why he brought it back up randomly. I think because he saw that there was a mini golf field where we went camping last time, and maybe he's really good at remembering
Yeah.
things. So that's probably why he brought it up.
Mind like a steel trap. Awesome. That can go both
Yes,
ways.
yes.
There's pros and cons to that.
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm just like, how do you remember that?
So I've spent time with hot and uncomfortable kids before, and I know you have because you live in Atlanta. It's an unavoidable truth. In fact, we lived at Fort Benning, Georgia, so not very far away. And the way we handled that was we went to the pool a lot, but you cannot do that every single day. Yeah. So I want to talk about how to keep kids cool in hot weather because this is such a huge part of having a pleasant outdoor experience is one being comfortable, but two not listening to people cry because they're hot. Any people, but small people too. um so I'm wondering first about like just clothing. Kids can be a little more naked than adults, that's true, but we all have to wear clothes sometimes. So we think a lot about as adults what kind of fabric we're putting on ourselves. Is this something you also think through for kids?
So I do think about it, and I recently got like this really like lightweight long sleeve shirt, and you're probably like, long sleeve? Are you crazy? But it's like it was super lightweight. I think the material is like polyester.
Hmm.
So not the cotton that will like stick to you and absorb like all the sweatiness and everything. But I wore it out recently. We went somewhere, it was hot that day, and I wore a long sleeve shirt just to see like how it would do. And surprisingly, I was not uncomfortable. And one reason I say that is not only like should you wear long sleeves, like could you wear long sleeves when it's hot outside because it protects your skin if you're in like direct sunlight,
Sure.
but also if it's lightweight enough, like those types of shirts are, then you can easily wear it on top of something else. And if like you're too hot, take that off. That way you still have something on up underneath.
Hmm.
But like for the kids, I try not to put them in cotton stuff during the summertime just because it does get really hot. So I try to find like clothes material that is super lightweight. Usually it's short sleeve. I haven't tried putting them in long sleeve stuff in the summertime yet, but I'm thinking about it, especially if we're going to be exposed to the daylight often.
Right.
But no matter where we go, I always bring a hat for
Mm.
them.
And it's interesting you talk about cotton. Of course, we know that cotton is like the great evil of for outdoor clothing, right? No, do not wear it in the
I
heat. Do
know.
not wear it in the cold. It's
Not wearing it
Don't
cold
wear it at all. Just leave it home. My God. Um,
forever.
but so many of kids' clothes are like cotton or cotton blend. And I'm thinking about like those little
Yeah.
onesie rompers for your kids. And I just have this memory that keeps popping into my brain every time I start thinking about this issue of my fat little, like just over maybe 16 months, okay, like little guy, right? Toddling around in his little button under his diaper, cotton little shorts thing. It's so cute, but he's wearing cotton and I didn't know. And he is sitting in a high chair at some picnic were at on the side of a lake. We just drove there, and he looks like he is on fire because he's so hot looking. He also looks like he's melting, like a melting fire, okay? And crying because he's hot and uncomfortable. And I just keep like going back to this hot, sticky baby. Now, this is a kid who had his own personal clip-on fan, okay? His name's Huck. Huck likes a breeze, and when he would be in the stroller, I had this fan to keep him happy because he'd get hot. So he was uncomfortable just as a rule anyway. But it never even occurred to me at that point in my life, because this wasn't my lifestyle, that one, I had no idea cotton was bad. And two, that I was putting my kid in something that he was going to just become a sticky puddle in on almost on purpose.
Yeah.
And diapers aren't well ventilated either. So it's like a whole
No, they're not at all.
situation.
And it seems like when we wear cotton, even though cotton is not bad, it seems like when we do wear it, we just get like super sweaty. You can see all the sweat marks all over us. It doesn't really do a good job at like keeping us cool,
Right.
if that
Yeah,
makes
because
sense, you know?
it like absorbs the water and doesn't let it evaporate, which makes you just hotter or colder on the day,
Right.
depending on the
Right.
day. Zero
Right.
star environment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like you kind of need something that's like, I think is wicking the right
Yeah.
word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to think about that, I think for your kids is kind of new for a lot of people. Not to say that parents don't think about their children, but they do. But I think we're just not used to thinking about fabric types when it comes to our little guys, especially those real little kids in diapers and whatnot. So how do you have like a secret to finding affordable outdoor summertime clothing for kids? Because gosh, talk about something you can spend a lot of money on for yourself. These kids, they will not stop growing. So
I know. So the crazy thing about like outdoor gear in itself is it can be very expensive. So usually, and I do this for like regular clothes, but I try to find stuff that's secondhand
mhm.
first if I can help it. Because just like you said, they grow so fast. Like something they can wear this month they may not be able to wear in 2 months' time, and we're still in the same season.
Right.
So I usually try to size up and then also find it secondhand. So, like going to a local thrift store, or even I know REI has like a secondhand um,
Yeah.
section too on their website and in the
Hmm.
store. So I like to shop. I really like to shop secondhand first if I can help it before I buy anything new. And if I can't find anything new, then of course, I mean, if I can't find anything secondhand, then of course I'll buy it new. But that's like my last resort, unless it's something that I really want to invest in. But the clothes is usually not one of those
Yeah.
things.
I think the sizing up is a really important tip because it's easy, especially when you're talking about shorts. Like, that's totally an option.
Hmm.
There's no reason that you
Hmm.
can't do that. And shorts then will just get shorter. So what the heck? You can wear them for like 4 years. My now 10-year-old, I've got pictures of this kid wearing size 18-month shorts well into age 3. So
Oh my gosh.
they still fit around his middle. They just got a little bit short. So
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like you can do the same for shoes too. Like, because shoes can be very
Mhm.
expensive, but sometimes if you go to the right thrift store, you can find some really good shoes in really good condition.
Yeah.
Or even like shopping on Facebook Marketplace.
Mhm.
I love Facebook Marketplace for a lot of things. And then there's like another um secondhand place that I shop for kids stuff, and I think it's called um Kidizen.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
No, I'm familiar with Once Upon a Child. That's one that I've seen in a
Okay. So Kidizen is like an app you can go on and like just input like what you're looking for, and then people who may have it in their house will sell it to you for a discounted
nice.
price.
It's like Poshmark for kids, maybe?
Yeah,
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 very cool.
yeah.
No, I wasn't familiar with that. That's a great tip. Thank you. Okay, so talk to us about food and drinks because we are at the Humans Outside podcast pro snacks. So just like for
Yes.
everyone,
All the
all of
snacks.
them, specifically for me, but also for the kids. So they play a role. So in your experience, what role do they play in keeping your kids comfortable in the heat specifically? And do you have like go-to snacks for hot summer days where everyone needs extra hydration? You know, it's nice to say feed everyone popsicles, but like that's not always practical. Coolers sometimes aren't as cool as you need them to be, and so on. So what do you love?
So it is definitely like a key element in keeping them happy and comfortable. But the funny thing is, like, we will get out of the car and get ready to say go on a hike, and they're already asking for a snack. And I'm just like, we haven't even done, we haven't even done the exercise that we came here to do, and you already want food. So usually I'll be like, okay, well, just give it a little bit of time and then we'll get some. But if I can tell like they're like super not into it, then they'll have something to start the trail with, and that's fine. So I always try to bring a lot of snacks if I can help it. A lot of like our main ones that I go towards are apples, oranges, bananas, and then we do like snack bars
Mm.
that are made like from dates. And then of course like we'll have like nuts and fruit or whatever else in it. And then I do bring regular water, but sometimes depending on how hot it is outside, I like to bring coconut water
Mhm.
because of the added electrolytes in
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. Yeah, so what I hear you saying is a lot of sort of natural-based foods with lots of good natural sugar because, of course, at the core of this is the good old blood sugar, and you don't wanna spike that too high with fake not fake sugar, but refined sugar, right? And then having that fruit sort of manages that a little bit better, plus provides some fiber, so you're not just feeling immediately hungry again. Sort of a picture, like full nutrition picture there.
Right.
Yeah. Even though
Plus, the apples and oranges they technically have water in it.
mhm.
So, another way to hydrate too.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, I mean, I still am pro Swedish fish, but okay.
No, No judgment there.
Just here for the fish, guys. No, and I have a friend, one of my friends here in Alaska uses Sour Patch Kids. So you gotta find what works for you. Gotta find what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you,
So we are actually a vegan.
okay.
So like they don't eat candy.
Okay.
So so for them, like the dates are like their candy, like their
Yeah.
dessert,
Yeah.
because they know that they're super sweet. And I just try to like you were saying, the things that I mentioned sound like natural and like natural sugar. So I try to go for those things first
Mm-hmm.
if I can help it. However, sometimes I do bring pretzels or crackers or even make sandwiches
Mm-hmm.
for days that I know that we're going to be out most of the day.
Right. Because that salt is important too, especially if it's really
Hmm.
hot. Having it,
Right. So we like to bring cashews, like the
yeah.
salted
Yeah.
cashews.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Having that good salty snack doesn't just taste good, it's actually doing something for you. That's a great tip. And I was thinking salt purely in the form of maybe salted pretzels or something like that, but that salted nuts is a really good tip because I think that people don't really think about that in that way. They think about it as a source of protein, but not necessarily a source of sodium, even though it totally is,
Right.
depending on how it's cooked.
Yeah. So I read somewhere recently, and it was probably a few months ago, honestly, that when you like are out exercising, whether it be hiking, running, whatever, you're like, when you're sweating, you're losing all of that.
Right.
So like you want to replenish it with something salty. So then I think it was like recommended to do like salted nuts or like something salted to
Mhm.
put that sodium back in your body.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's part of it with kids is what they're used to eating, of course, right? So your kids are used to those fruits and that's a really palatable thing for them, but you want to keep it interesting too, right? With textures and that kind of thing. So nuts really check the box on that. Just sort of shake it up. That's why they're in the trail mix.
Yeah, exactly. But I know some kids are allergic to nuts or maybe specific kind of nuts. So you're going to have to like switch it up with what salty snack you're going to bring.
Right, right, exactly. Exactly. I also find like, well, it's harder with a kid because you have to listen to what they're asking for, and kids aren't always really in tune with what their body needs, right? But I know when I need a salty snack, right? Because I'm craving it. And I don't know, they always say, right, like when you're a brand new mom, if you're cold, your baby's cold, or something along those lines, right? So I figure the same thing goes on the trail. If I'm hungry for something specific or if I'm feeling hot, then probably my kids are riding
They
on that
probably
struggle
are.
bus too a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So you said you bring coconut water. Do you have any secrets for keeping kids drinking enough water? I feel like I beg my children to stay hydrated. Like, have you had any water this year? Like at all.
Oh my gosh. On like a regular day, I'll be like, you haven't had any water today. Like, you need to drink water. But when we're out, usually they'll like when they see me drinking water, then they usually ask for it. But if it gets to the point where like we're on a trail, for instance, and we're basically on the last leg and they have given up and they're just trying to push to the end, that's when all of the can I have water? Can I have water starts to kick in more because they're tired, they're hot, they're cranky, they don't want to keep going. But I'm just like, we can stop, take a break, have some water, have a snack, but we got to keep going because we're almost there. So usually they kind of follow my lead, but sometimes they'll ask.
I've seen parents purchase their kids like backpack hydration packs and I give my kids water bottle, like they each have their own hydro flask right now. And I'm just sort of like pushing the water tools. Like maybe if we make this feel fancy or special, they'll drink a lot of water. And I do think, like I said, they're older. I think having their own water bottles has helped with this because it's a sense of ownership over this thing and they have stickers on it and they think it's kind of cool, but it is, man, it is a struggle bus. My 13-year-old looks like he lives in the Sahara Desert half the time because his lips are so chapped. She's like, drink some water, my dude. What is going on with you?
Yes. So I have book bags for both of them.
Hmm.
And what happens to them when we're out?
They get lost.
I end
Yeah.
up being the one to carry
Or you
them.
carry them. Yes, that's the second option.
Yes. So I don't really have a secret to like them getting them to drink more water, but I just try to like keep reiterating, hey, let's stop and take a break and drink
Yeah.
something. If I've noticed that we've gone a long time
Hmm.
and nobody's hydrated, especially on a hot day.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Hey humans! Did you know you can officially join the Humans Outside 365 Challenge and score some really cool and exclusive challenge swag, including a finisher medal and a decal on humansoutside.com/challenge? You'll also get an outdoor challenge guide written by me for you, an exclusive challenge tracker, and insider info all year long. You don't want to be left out of this. There is never a wrong time to join the Humans Outside 365 Challenge. So get going. Join it today. Go to humansoutside.com/challenge to learn more now. Now, back to the show. So dry heat and that humid, sticky heat feels very different. Of course, you've lived in California, so you know the dry heat.
Oh,
And now you're in
yes.
Atlanta, so you
Yes.
know the humidity. Very intimate.
Well, I grew up here and I do not miss the heat. Like, I am not looking forward to this summer because I just know it's going to be hot and humid versus being in California. It's a little bit different because we
Mm-hmm.
lived closer to the water.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still hot, just not as bad.
Yeah, you kind of, it's like steaming to death or baking. Like, pick one. Do you feel like you prepare your kids for outdoor adventures any differently depending on that humidity level?
Sometimes, yeah. So quick story. We when we lived in California, we were in the Bay Area, which is Northern California, and we decided to go to Joshua Tree, which is basically Southern California and the desert. I knew what the temperature was going to be. However, I don't think I was mentally prepared for how hot and dry it was going to be. I don't know. It like being in that heat made me like choking a little bit 'cause I'm just like it's so dry and hot at the same time. So I was just prepared for regular hot heat. But when we got there, I noticed it was just way too hot to be doing anything. And there were some other people in our campsite, and they were just like, we usually come during this time of year every year and it's hot every year. But what we've learned is to stay in the shade during the day and do go out and adventure like earlier in the morning before it gets too hot or like later in the day as the sun starts to go down. So even though we weren't prepared with our clothes the correct way, we still had whatever you would wear when it's hot outside, like short sleeves, shorts, those types of things. We just try not to do too much in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if you live in that kind of heat, you develop this habit of gravitating towards the right time, quote unquote, right times of the day. But also you become accustomed to that dry baking heat, and it maybe doesn't feel as hot in the same way. And I like to remind people who are listening to this show that nothing we ever say is meant to be a judgment for how somebody experiences whatever temperature it is in which they live. So when I sit here and I'm like, well, it's -30 today or whatever, that's an exaggeration. It's not usually quite that cold, but like my experience of dealing with negative temperatures I often go for runs in negative temperatures, or I'm out like frosted eyelashes, and that looks very cool, but I'm used to that. Well, not today, but in the wintertime, I'm used to that. And so like
Right.
today, that would be a real shock to the system. it's okay for me because I not only do I know how to dress for it, but I know what it feels like and I understand how to experience it and I understand the experience of it. But when you are new to that, that's can be very shocking. And so wherever you are, maybe that 30 degrees feels like a very shocking cold because it doesn't get that cold where you are, except for this one day. And that's okay. And the same thing goes for when it's hot. So, like you're saying, you go down to Joshua Tree, it's extremely hot. It's not something that you're used to. And that experience is very jarring and you figure it out and you have as good of a time as you can, but it's not something that's been with inexperience. The point is that wherever you are and whatever your experience of temperature is, that's fine. It's not, this is not a comparison. This is just like a
Right.
toolbox on figuring
Right.
out ways that work for you.
To help.
Yeah, and totally. So I don't want people to hear me talk ever and be like, oh, well, I'm not as hardcore as that. Listen, if you can avoid negative temperatures, do it. Just run away.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been in negative temperatures purposefully. So I think the coldest I've ever been outside is probably like maybe 19 degrees, and that was cold enough for me.
Yeah, and I've never done like August, which is my understanding that's the hottest time in Georgia. Never done it.
Like July, August is really hot.
Yeah, never done it. We moved down there in October and our tour down at Fort Benning, Georgia was up in June and we moved away.
Oh, so
So
you missed
yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes, I
You
did.
missed the dead hot of
I
summer.
did. Nonetheless, my oldest son was 2 at the time. He turned 2 while we were there. And the way we dealt with what I considered unbearably hot temperatures was I worked part-time at the time from home. And after his nap time in the afternoon, and sometimes in between naps in the morning, I would put him in the bike
Mhm.
trailer and we would cycle a half mile to the community pool and basically sit in a cooling puddle for hours on end. That's how we dealt
Yes.
with it. Okay.
Yeah.
But because one cannot swim all the time, you have to tell us what your
Mhm.
favorite summer activities are in the heat. What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? What do your kids enjoy? How do you balance keeping outside, keeping moving, but not just sitting in a puddle of your own sweat or at a pool the whole time?
Yeah, so one thing that we have started doing a lot lately is finding, and I'm gonna mention water because every kid loves water, is going to a creek.
Hmm.
So that way they don't have to swim, right? Because you're not at the pool, but they still get the opportunity to play in water and even play with whatever surrounding in that area. So for them, they always like to pick up sticks or rock. If there's leaves on the ground, they like to pick up the leaves and play with those. So we spend a lot of time at the creek, but we also still like to do hikes earlier in the day when it's not so hot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they love riding their bikes. So honestly, like a lot of the stuff that we do is not in the middle of the day
Right.
when it's blazing hot outside.
Yeah, you're just
And I've just learned that works
yeah,
better.
you're just avoiding the hottest times of day and
Hmm.
putting your schedule around what's comfortable for you. Because, like we've been talking about, really the best way to make an enjoyable outdoor experience, step one, be comfortable.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, because you don't want cranky kids.
No,
Like
no.
that's just not gonna not gonna help the situation out at all.
No, and that's true of little kids, and I can testify that's true of older kids too. Man,
Yes.
no. Just, I mean, cranky
Yeah.
adults aren't great either. It's just a whole ball of fun. So
Mhm.
just keep it down. But
Yeah.
but I love
Yeah.
that creek point because the other thing about a pool is that's really can be a place of, not to overuse a term, but privilege to say you have a
Mhm.
membership to a pool or you have access to a pool or you can afford a pool or there is a
Mhm.
pool.
Right.
So many factors there that not
Right.
everybody has readily available. Even just depending on where you live, there may not be a nearby pool. We had that
Right.
because we lived on the military base, and that's what the base communities all have there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a pool. So
Yeah.
you got to use what you have access to, and that could be a creek.
Yes. And a lot of the times, wherever the creeks are, however you get to them is free.
Yes,
So, like,
exactly.
it could be a local park or whatever. Most of the time, it's free.
Yeah.
So that's also good because, not like you said, like not everybody can afford a membership to a pool, or even if it was, the neighborhood pool. Like, I'm sure somebody's paying for
Right.
that.
Well, exactly. Now, have you ever used water tables with your kids? Like those little water table
Yes.
features? Do they like that? Does that
Yes.
work for you guys?
So it does. So there was maybe a couple years ago where we like didn't have access to a pool. We didn't live close to the beach. Like the beach was like an hour or so away. So it's just out of the question to be doing that every single day because who's driving an hour back and forth every
Right.
day when it's hot outside? So we would just go outside and I would set up their water table and they would have little toys in it that they would play with. This year, it's been a little hot already. So we've gotten the sprinklers out. That's new to them. Do you remember ever growing up and turning the sprinklers on and
Okay.
running back and forth through them?
Heck yes. Heck yes.
So I recently introduced that to them and they're just like, what do you do? I'm just like, just run, just have fun.
That's right.
So they've been doing that. We got like a little slip and slide recently, and they're just like, okay, how do you do this? So for those who like don't have access to a pool, but still want to do something water related, you kind of got to think outside the box or just think back to when you were a kid and what you did outside.
Yes. Peak enjoyment, chasing your sibling with the sprinkler. It's just an idea.
Yeah. I feel like that could go bad in so many ways.
And now that you're mentioning this, my best friend, when I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old, had just a real collection of water guns, super
Oh,
soakers,
yeah.
right? Man, those are the
Yes.
days. Super soaker
Yeah.
time.
Definitely an option too.
So this goes back to chasing
We
your
just have to
sibling.
think about when we were
That's
younger.
right.
Yeah, we just have to think about when we were younger, honestly. Like, we did all the things. We were outside all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like kids these days, a lot of them are not outside as much,
Hmm.
which is one of the reasons why I was just like, we got to get outside and do all the things and figure out what we can do no matter what it is. Because, you know,
Yeah.
there's so much to explore, so much to see in this world alone. So why not go do it?
So, because you've lived in two very different places, I'm wondering if you can give, and
Mhm.
because you went to Joshua Tree, you experienced something that you weren't quite ready for, but you rolled with it. You rolled with it. So,
I did.
how can people maybe get ready to go into a different kind of heat than what they're used to? So maybe somebody traveling, maybe deeper into the south from north and about to hit hit that hot Atlanta right away,
Mm,
or maybe going like you did down to Joshua Tree. What's a great way to prepare for that kind of a change? I don't know, maybe even just mentally.
um, so I don't know if you could like mentally prepare for the heat in the South versus the North if you've never experienced it. But some ways to be prepared maybe
Hmm.
is to always bring layers. Now, whether you wear them or not is completely up to you. It's up to your comfort level. But I've noticed, like, especially in the desert, it gets very cold at night.
Hmm.
And even here, like the night times they can be pretty chilly to where you might need a light jacket or long sleeves. So definitely bring layers. Even in the summertime, you can wear your short sleeves all day long, but like if you're going to be out at night too, have something that you can wear on top. Always bring a hat. We have gone to Utah many times when it's hot, when it's cold. And, it can get very hot there too, especially in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to bring a hat with us no matter where we go, whether I wear it or not. Sunscreen, if you don't want to bring long sleeves, but you have sunscreen and you want to do that, that's always something to bring. I feel like you should wear sunscreen almost every day anyway, because the sun's out every single day,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be super hot or just very comfortable. I just feel like you should always use sunscreen. Water, be prepared to drink lots of water in the summertime because you can get very dehydrated quickly. So whether you're driving or flying, just pack a water bottle or like a reusable water bottle. That way you can just refill it wherever you go. And we do that when we travel anyway, like always bring water with us.
Yeah.
And then the snacks.
The snacks.
you gotta have the snacks.
Pro
You
snack.
gotta have the snacks. So I think maybe like those are the few things that I would definitely like recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, those are such good and practical tips. And the thing that's so good about them is they're not all great tips are rocket science, right? Sometimes you just have to hear the things that would be obvious if you stop to think about them, but it's just like, oh, no,
Right.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. Like me not putting my kids in heavy cotton clothing, Amy. Come on. So but like you
So
live and learn.
yeah. So one thing that like honestly like really prepares me for super hot heat, like no matter where it is, the past couple of years I've gone to Costa Rica,
Mm.
and the part of Costa Rica that I go to, I don't know if it's Costa Rica as a whole or just like where we're staying, but it's like very close to the equator, I'm pretty sure, or something like that.
It's
And
hot.
yeah, it's hot. It's so hot. Like, it's so hot to the point where you can walk, if you're going to walk to the water on the beach, you need to wear shoes on the beach to get to the water because the sand is like unbelievably hot. So, those are the main things that I think about when preparing to be out in the sun. And also limiting my exposure to the sun too, because you don't want to be in the sun too much. Like you can wear a hat and you can wear long sleeves, but like still trying to find a space where there's shade too. It's also important so you're not under the sun 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's easy to forget how important that is when you're busy thinking about how much you wish you were in the sun. So too much of a good
Yeah.
thing, guys. And going back, one of your tips before was about sunscreen. And I think well, especially for the kids, remembering to reapply because they're not going to understand when they're
hmm
starting to burn. But talk about great
Yes.
way to be hotter than you were before. Have a sunburn.
Right. Because it's not comfortable at all.
Not good. And so, just keeping an eye on, even just on the clock to say, okay, how long has it been since we put sunscreen on? And let's do that. Let's just do that again, just for fun. It's not going to hurt us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mine are always like, why do we have to put this on? I'm just like, because you're about to be out in the sun. That's why. And we have to protect your skin.
That's right. So before we close out, we've been talking about gear, we've been talking about tools, we've been talking about, most importantly, about snacks. It's possible that I'm hungry right now. Okay, tell us though, what if you had to pick one piece of outdoor gear that you just love? What is your favorite piece of outdoor gear? Something that you can recommend to people?
Um, I would think my most essential would be to have a good pair of shoes. And I know it's not necessarily like clothing,
Oh no, it still
but
counts.
I think shoes are important, like not just for us, but for the kids too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, and if you're not in good shoes, you're just uncomfortable, and that really goes back to what we were talking about
Yeah.
before. It's all of this comes back, temperature, clothing, all that comes back to making sure you're comfortable and your people are comfortable
Mhm.
because then this cuts
Mhm.
down on the crying But more
Yes.
importantly,
Oh my
yeah, but
gosh.
more
Yes.
importantly, it increases your personal and your kids' enjoyment of being outside. And that's what we want to do. We want to make being outside and having outdoor experiences a pleasant part of our lives so that it's something that we want to do more for ourselves. But so it's something that, like you were saying earlier, how you were raised, you had great outdoor experiences. And so it was something you wanted to keep doing. And when you're really uncomfortable, that's probably not true.
No, not at all. And let me tell you, the boys had just gotten a new pair of shoes. Now, mind you, like I did not really know the size that they were in. I kind of was just like, oh, they're probably in this now since they can't wear whatever other size anymore. The first time that went out on trail in those new shoes, they were like, my feet hurt the entire time. And come to find out, the shoes were not big enough for their for them. So like that made for an uncomfortable, whiny outdoor experience. So that's why I feel like shoes are definitely essential.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that because I mean, figuring out what size your kids wear on their feet is so hard. Why is it
It's
so
so hard.
hard? But, like that's just, I mean, as you're saying, that's an essential thing. You have to take the time to figure out what size they are. And I think in an era where we do so much online ordering, it's particularly difficult because you don't have that shoe fitter thingy that they have in the store
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
your house. And it's just, and then you're
I
ordering shoes,
know.
trial and error, not good. Okay. Walk us out. I think we could diatribe for a long time about the perils of shoe buying because it is a universal experience.
I know, and it's never
Never
fun, no
fun.
matter which way you go.
Not good. 0-star event. Okay, but let's talk about something that is fun. As a final thing, if you're going to walk us out with maybe your favorite outdoor moment, something that you just like to think about, some time that gives you joy or something you like to go back to, where are you and what are you doing?
My favorite outdoor moment would have to be sitting at the beach.
Mhm.
Or not necessarily sitting, but like just walking the beach and putting my toes in the sand and in the water. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's warm, depending on which coast you're on. But I don't know, something about the ocean breeze and the sound of the water just like kind of puts me at peace no matter what I'm doing, no matter how the week went. It just kind of like brings me back to being peaceful
Mhm.
in that moment.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on Humans Outside, sharing your experience and your hard earned expertise in this area of getting your kids outside in the heat, no matter what kind of heat. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Humans Outside. Help me out by leaving a 5-star rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help other listeners find the podcast too. Now, go get outside. Until next time, we'll see you out there.